Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. My name is Allan, and I'm here to wish you all a happy new year. 2022 is in the books, and it was a weird year for Challenge fans. On the one hand, we were overloaded with content. We had Challenge All-Stars 2, Challenge All-Stars 3, Challenge USA, and if you loved the show just enough, you went out and searched for Challenge Australia. On the other hand, the MTV season Ride or Dies did not happen until late into 2022. That season is still airing currently, and we are still 4 to 8 weeks from the final of that season. So the challenge is more apparent than ever. We are getting content, but the soul of the show, the passion, it feels more distant and more weak than ever. It's a very confusing time to be a challenge fan, but there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, and in this video, we're going to focus on the good. We're going to look at the year 2022 and rank who were the top 10 biggest winners of the last year. Who were the people who made 2022 their year? And for this video, we're only going to be counting what happened in 2022. So whoever wins Ride or Dies, if you know the spoilers to that, that does not matter because that is going to be counted towards 2023. Whatever happened at the beginning of Challenge All-Stars 2, that doesn't really count for here because that was 2021. We're only talking 2022, and there's going to be a lot of people who maybe should have been on the list who got left off, people who can be surprised by. Let's just jump straight into it, though. We're going to have some honorable mentions at the end. Let's jump straight into number 10, and we're going to kick off with two rookies. Kicking us off at number 10, we have a tie between the Ride or Die rookies, Olivia Kaiser and Horacio Gutierrez. These two people, the moment they stepped foot on the challenge, you could tell they were built different. Horacio, as a competitor, just looked so physically excellent. TJ was like laughing and smiling because like, oh my God, this guy is so good. And then Olivia in that opening hall brawl just proved to be a beast. I mean, they're built physically well. They have a good smile on their faces when they give their confessionals. MTV uses a lot of their confessionals because they know they hit the gold mine with the two of them. They are stars of the season where they're getting talking head moments even when they aren't important. They also are decent reality TV characters. Olivia had her showmance with Nelson. She has her politicking, and she's willing to say whatever on camera. She's a really nice girl. Horacio is just, I mean, he's like Landon Luke 2.0, except a little bit more handsome, in my opinion. They are a dynamic duo, and they already have some records or potential records they can break. They've won 3 eliminations each. Horacio's at 4. Maybe they get to 5. Who knows? Maybe they tie that record set by Wes and Sarah Grayson and Casey all those years ago. They are struck gold with these two cast members. They might be future faces of the franchise. They might be faces of the franchise right now even. Congrats to them because I did not see them coming, and now they are a big part of our life. Another person who's been a big part of the Challenge universe, at number 9, we got Jordan Wiseley. He was on All-Stars 3 and Ride or Dies, and a year ago, 2 years ago, the rumor was Jordan was banned from the Challenge. He's very much not banned anymore. They put him on All-Stars 3, where he got to compete along the OGs despite being a younger guy. He had a really good season where he destroyed Darrell Taylor in an elimination, came up short of the final, but that's okay. He had his showmance with Naya, which was a crazy reality TV moment. I mean, who would have expected that? I mean, maybe you would have expected it, but it happened, and now he has another Exes partner. They were supposed to go on Ride or Dies together. Naya has some health issues. He becomes Anissa's partner, which leads to one of the most dramatic twists because him and Anissa, not great friends. But it adds to the mess of him and Tori. Watching him work with Anissa, who's not a great player, was incredibly fun as they won 2 daily challenges. They won an elimination. His elimination record on the MTV show is now 8-2, which is the second best record by a male competitor ever after 10 eliminations. And then you had the showman stuff with Nurys and the little rivalry stuff with Jay. Jordan is set up really well for a future Exes season with Naya, Tori, or Nurys, or a rival season with Jay, Devin, or Wes. Jordan had himself a great year. I mean, people thought he was banned a year ago, and now he's one of the most important figures on the challenge. And let's talk about someone who started with losses in 2022 and then built themselves back up. In 8th place, we got bionic Brad Fiorenza. Brad started 2022 with a bad elimination loss at the end of All-Stars 2, and then All-Stars 3, you had a stacked cast with people like Wes, Jordan, Darrell, Yes, Mark, Derek, Tyler, all these multi-time champions. So much so that Brad, as a one-time champion, really felt like he was at the bottom of the totem pole. Then the season starts, and he's dominating daily challenge after daily challenge, showing that he really deserves to be on that list of all-time greats. I was so impressed by Brad because he showed a lot of growth as a player. He was showing improvement in the stuff he was never good at when it comes to like puzzles And then physically, he was just so imposing. I feel good for Brad. I'm sad he lost the season and came in second place. I mean, he got outworked by West. There's no other way to put it. But in terms of like those daily challenges, Brad shined just as bright as anyone. Let's keep talking about people who dominated daily challenges. Tied for seventh place from the Challenge USA, we have Tyson Apostol and Angela Rummans. Tyson was a sole survivor. He was already a legend in that realm of the reality TV universe. And at age 42, he debuted on the challenge and proved he was really damn good at that too. Whether it was puzzles, swimming, heights, whatever, Tyson had a strategy for everything. And he was so head and shoulders above all the other guys when it came to the daily challenges. He was so good that the concept of him going into elimination really was never out there because all the women wanted to be partnered with him for the final. In the final itself, I mean, things didn't work out. He lost to Danny. It's a clean loss. But Tyson dominated the season, so much so that people were talking about, well, how does he compare to Bananas? How does he compare to CT? And just the fact that you could start that conversation and people were debating it online, it shows he was a legitimately good competitor. And he pulled off one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen in a daily challenge when he won a swimming challenge with a person who could not swim. On top of that, he also has his podcast on The Ringer, where he's now part of the challenge universe, kind of, and just the way he's been a character and just so funny on talking about the show. It's been really big, and he was very important to the Challenge USA. His right-hand woman, Angela, was also a beast, and I did not like Angela on Big Brother. I thought she was really snobby. I thought she was the worst. And then she comes on the challenge, and she just killed every single challenge and owned her personality, where she was playing the game for herself. And I really loved seeing it, and it was like you could watch her and you could think she was a certain way, but she did not float through the game. Every single challenge, she had a strategy just like Tyson, where what was the best way to do it. She was physically imposing, and when it came to the final, she quit. But I don't know how you could watch Angela in the season and think she did not have the endurance to run the final. The way that final was set up was just so fucked up from the onset that I kind of give her a pass. I mean, she did quit. She did lose the final, and that's why she ranked 7th instead of higher on this list. But Angela owned that season. I don't know how you could watch the daily challenges and not think Angela is a boss, especially when you consider Desi, Justine, Sarah, Kailah, Alyssa, all of them are such strong competitors, yet Angela was always better than them no matter what the challenge was, it felt like. I would actually love to see Angela transition to the MTV version of the challenge. Whereas Tyson, I think I'd prefer seeing him on Challenge All-Stars. I think he would mix it up really well with the OGs, and he is a reality TV legend in his own right. It would be a fun dynamic. I'm really sad they did not win Challenge USA because they dominated their seasons. But let's talk about someone who did win the season. In 6th place, we have Sarah Lacina. She won over $200,000 this year by winning a season. She's going on the Global show. She won a season with a stacked female cast that automatically ranks her highly. And if you follow this channel, you know I do not like Sarah Lacina. And we're going to cut it short right here because I could say a lot of mean things about Sarah, and I'm not going to. I'm going to say a lot of nice things about our next person. In 5th place, he appeared on Challenge All-Stars 2 and Challenge All-Stars 3, made the final of both seasons. We have Nehemiah Clark. Nehemiah is a guy who was always underrated. He was always like a side character. He was always Wes's friend. And then he comes on to Challenge All-Stars 2. He starts the King's Palace Alliance, where he's really the leader of that alliance. He's spearheading that group. They're passionate, they're loyal, and they had a fun theme song. He goes to the final with Melinda, his ride or die, his longtime friend. Melinda had never won an elimination before. They win 2 eliminations together. They go to that final. They win part 1, which was 95% of the final, despite Melinda hurting her ankle. And truly, when you look back, they deserved to win that final. Production kind of interfered. They did some shady stuff. Nehemiah and Melinda killed it. They go into the next season. He goes into All-Stars 3, stays really under the radar. Nobody calls him out for elimination because he's a really solid player. He played a good social game. He goes into that final elimination against Derek, absolutely dominates Derek in a pole wrestle. What Derek is known for, Nehemiah dominates him. Goes to the final, comes in 3rd place. Obviously, a win would have made this a great year, but Nehemiah went from a guy who was a side character to a main character. And what's crazy is a couple years ago, Nehemiah probably wouldn't have been rated a top 30 player all time. Now Nehemiah is probably a top 20 guy. He's really changed his legacy on the challenge, and I'm really happy for him. Let's talk about another winner, though. In fourth place, we have Danny McCray. And Danny McCray, he loves his wife, Kiki. He won a daily challenge to qualify for the final, and then he beat Tyson in the final. He's just a purely likable dude. There was nothing wrong with his year. He just won money. Good for him. He's not disliked like Sarah. Just a great guy. I love Kiki. That's really all we got to say. Let's move into number 3. I have a really weird tie in third place, as nobody in 2022 dramatically changed their challenge legacy as these two people. Well, actually, maybe one person, and we'll get to that person later. Tied for third place, Melinda Stolp and MJ Garrett. MJ was a guy who did a few seasons in the mid-2000s. The last time we saw him compete on the challenge, he was the big athletic guy who got outworked by Brad Fiorenza and Frank Rossler, and they made him look kind of silly. He comes on Challenge All-Stars 2, fits in really well with the Veteran Alliance, proves to be a really strong competitor, pairs up with Jonna. They're a strong pair together, and then they win the season. You could say his final performance wasn't the most impressive, but he won the season, won $250,000, goes into All-Stars 3 as a power player, a really big figure in confessionals, and he had a rivalry with Brad that was really fun to watch. Watching MJ play as like someone with a target on him was really fascinating too. And he just feels like part of the challenge universe again, and someone that people view as a top 20, top 25 player. Then you have Melinda Stolp. And before Challenge All-Stars 2, Melinda was probably viewed as one of the worst competitors ever. She always went into elimination because she didn't have a great social game. Statistically, she was one of the worst daily challenge competitors ever. Elimination-wise, she was 0-4, 0-5, something like that. One of the worst elimination records ever. Undeniably, everything told you that Melinda was a bad player. Then she goes on All-Stars 2, and as with Nehemiah, they start doing really well in the daily challenges. Surprisingly, good. They win the final daily challenge of the season to go to the final. She sprains her ankle in her first final ever, and then kills it. She's doing puzzles. She's eating food, all with a bad ankle, all while injured. She puts up a final performance that's better than Darrell and Janelle. Melinda was so crazy because she went from someone who was viewed as one of the worst players ever to now being someone who was seconds away from winning a challenge final. And it's just so crazy to show what someone can do given the opportunity, what people can do after time and progress, because these two people, they were viewed much lower than they were 15 years ago. And it's kind of crazy to think that what they did in their 20s versus what they do in their late 30s, 40s as parents is so different. Congratulations to them for being number 3 on my list. I would really love to see them on a season again. And let's go into number 2. Moving into second place, it is someone who would be number 1 in any other year, as he had one of the most impressive individual seasons in challenge history. We are talking about the winner of Challenge All-Star Season 3, Wes Bergman. Wes is someone who knows he's a good player, but when it comes to finals, he's not the most elite final runner. Thus, he goes into every season trying to go after the biggest threat in a final. The problem is, All-Stars 3 had 3 elite final runners: Darrell Taylor, Yes Duffy, and Jordan Wiseley. Wes knew he wasn't going to beat any of them in a final, so he had to get all 3 of them out. Getting one of those guys out is tough because they are great players. Getting all 3 out before the final is incredibly difficult, just math-wise. Wes had to play a perfect game socially, politically, strategically, and physically in order to make sure those guys were out before the final. He even threw himself down into elimination and called out Yes Duffy to take him out single-handedly. It was a masterful performance, and it's something he'd been building up for years. And what's so crazy is that not only did he go to the final, but he went to the final with his 2 best friends, Brad and Nehemiah, coming in second and third place behind him. To win a season, to dominate a final, and then have your 2 best friends getting the silver and bronze medal, that's perfection. You can't script a season better than that, especially going against a cast as stacked as Challenge All-Stars 3 was. Wes putting himself at the top of the mountain amongst a stacked mountain of competitors, it is incredible. You can't deny it. And it's crazy he's not number 1, but it's because that person who's number 1 really deserved it. Let's talk about some honorable mentions real quick. First, we have Justine, Ndiba, and Desi Williams from the Challenge USA. They both qualified for the final, were impressive physical competitors, proved to be forces mentally as well, and they all looked gorgeous while doing it. Then we have Kailah Casillas, who randomly popped up on Challenge All-Star Season 3, and she dominated the game politically and mentally, just came up short in the final to Jonna Manion, who is a beast. Next up, we have Mark Long, who also made the final of Challenge All-Star Season 3. He won 2 eliminations, beating Jordan Wiseley, and proved that the Godfather, even in his 50s, can still run a final, still be a great competitor. Next up, moving back to the Challenge USA, we have Kyland Young, who after Tyson, I thought he was the best daily challenge competitor on that season, but he came up short of the final. Moving over to Ride or Dies, we have Nurys Mateo, who helped Nelson break his long-standing daily challenge losing streak. She proved to be a really strong mental competitor, and she had 2 showmances going on for great drama, great character. I'd love to see Nurys for future seasons. And our last honorable mention is Veronica Portillo, who on Challenge All-Stars 3 proved she was still a strong political and puzzle competitor, and she was so close to a final had she not broken her toe. I also have to give a big honorable mention to anyone who was on the Challenge Australia. I only watched the first 2 episodes. I apologize to Challenge Australia fans. I got to catch up. I've been busy with my own life. Once I finish that season, I'll do a whole video on my thoughts of Challenge Australia whenever that happens. But honorable mention to the Challenge Australia cast members. I heard it was very good. And what I've seen in the first 2 episodes, I enjoyed a lot. Now that we have the honorable mentions out of the way, let's talk about the number 1 challenger in the year 2022. At number 1, we have the winner of Challenge All-Star Season 2 and the winner of Challenge All-Star Season 3. It is Miss Jonna Manion, the face of Challenge All-Stars. And you think about the world 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, Jonna was someone who was 2-5 in eliminations, had never seen a challenge final. And the last time we saw her was just that debacle with Zach, where he was a terrible partner who was very abusive to her. And that was the end of her challenge career. Challenge All-Stars comes around, and she's 6 to 8 months removed from having a baby. She runs the final, ties for first place alongside Kellyanne, and it was such a happy moment. And if you ended her story right there, it would be good and all. Jonna takes that moment and she's like, okay, I can see what I can do when I'm not in shape. I'm going to get in way better shape. And she goes into these daily challenges where she's not the most dominant physical force. She's not even the most dominant mental force, but she knows as long as I can swim, as long as I can eat this, as long as I can do it and not come in last place, I won't go into elimination because I can work people socially to where they're not going to put me in. And it was so fun watching her play an excellent social game, playing to people's emotions, building up their egos. Jonna knew how to be the biggest threat by not being the biggest threat. She goes into that final with MJ. Things are going badly. They don't quit. They stick through it. And in that final puzzle, she wins it. She solves the equation and wins the final for them. No disrespect to MJ, Jonna won that final more than anyone. Then you go into Challenge All-Stars 3. She has a big target on her because she's come in first place in 2 straight finals. She's not part of the big alliance that everyone else is a part of. She's friends with MJ, who's like the number 1 pariah on the male side of the game. And yet she still wins daily challenges. She's consistently in the tribunals. She wins 2 eliminations, and her puzzle solve against Ronnie in their elimination was one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen. She gets to the final again, and she crushes Kailah, and she crushes Kellyanne, and she crushes Naya. Like it wasn't even close. She was proved to be a good eater, a good puzzle person, and her cardio was a very consistent pace the entire time. Jonna proved that like with time and opportunity, she could be a challenge champion, and she's done something that like nobody's ever done. Nobody's ever finished 3rd place in 3 straight finals on the female side. She's gone back-to-back, first time since Sarah Rice did it on Rivals 2 and Exes 2. Jonna is so incredible, and to watch her growth has meant a lot. I mean, Jonna was someone who I think wouldn't even rank in people's top 40 female competitors all time, and now there's a real argument for her to be in the top 10. Hell, I mean, if she wins a 3rd straight or a 4th straight out of nowhere, I mean, it's undeniable top 5. And I don't care if the All-Stars franchise is like maybe not as strong as the other seasons. Jonna winning as an individual, as a pair each time, it's meant so much, and I love to see her just become a butterfly. God, 2022 was such a weird year, and I also want to apologize to anyone for not putting as much content on this channel as I wanted to. I don't know how much content is going to be on here in 2023, but we're going to keep doing the podcast. We're going to keep doing as much as we can. Let's have a great year in 2023, everyone.